Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today we are doing the flagship series of the channel, Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid for Game Week 36, the third to last Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid video of the season, guys. So really kind of important because when we're doing our transfers now, we only got them for a couple of weeks. These are kind of going to be our last final important transfers before the ones at the end, the last two game weeks. I guess they're going to be largely 1 week punts, I guess, or 2 week punts kind of thing. So really important time to get your transfers right. Maybe thinking about some differentials, but we're going to help you out today. And hopefully it's really going to help you out. So give a like on the video if you do enjoy this series. It really does help the channel a lot. And of course, subscribe if you're new around here too. But before we get into the buys and sells and keeps and avoids, a quick word from our sponsors today, which are, of course, OneFootball, the regular sponsors of the Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid video. So for those of you who aren't familiar with OneFootball, it's a great app/website for all things football. Now, I personally use the OneFootball mobile app. That's my favourite part of OneFootball, my favourite thing. But they also do have a website as well. But I like the mobile app. You can just get it up on your phone, check up on the lineups really easily. You can get football news and transfer rumours all there, all in the same place, and the lineups and the stats and the scores, everything all in one place. So it's really useful for me. I really like it. I think you will too. It's completely free, so go check it out. The link is in the top of my description if you fancy a little go, and it helps support the channel, so why not? So buys a players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in, sells a players you probably have and should consider removing, keeps a players that you probably have and should keep, and avoids a players that you probably don't have and should avoid. That's probably the fastest I've ever done that. Now, guys, it's a blank game week 36, so we do have that approach to transfers with a little bit of nuance here, and maybe there's some more obvious choices and obvious things that we shouldn't do as well. So, for example, don't buy a player who is blanking in game week 36. So, Manchester United players, Leicester players, Chelsea players, and Arsenal players, none of them have games this week. Don't buy any of them. That's a big thing, right? This blank game week is going to kind of be the key to our transfer decision. So, as a general rule, we only really want to transfer out players who blank in game week 36, and we want to keep any player that actually plays in game week 36. Otherwise, many of us, we're going to struggle to field a full 11. So keep that in mind generally. Obviously, it's going to be different for different people, but generally, if you can't field a full 11, don't waste your transfers transferring out players who are already fortunate enough to have a game this game week. So sell a filthy blanker, replace them with a player who actually plays this week, and keeping all your playing players. But who are we going to look at specifically? Who are we going to look at? Well, we'll start you off with some buys. Come on. So our first buy is Mahrez. Some of you know I'm going to make a differential video tomorrow, as you know, the last one was pretty well. It went pretty well. There was some good predictions in there that really paid off. So hopefully we can do another one that can predict some really nice players again. I know finding the right differentials is kind of really important, particularly at this stage of the season. Mahrez was going to be in that video, but then the more I thought about it, the more I thought Mahrez is more than just a differential. He's more than a player you might just want to have a go for if you fancy a punt. He's genuinely actually an amazing option, whether you want to boost your rank, get ahead of the template, whatever. The problem is with Mahrez, and indeed all City players, is trying to figure out when they will play. Some people will say, okay, well, everyone has a huge rotation risk because City have basically won the league, so they have no reason to play their best players right now. Well, that's not quite right. So City have the Champions League final to play still at the end of the season, and because of this, they will want to keep their best players match fit and playing the odd game. Not necessarily every game, but they're not going to be permanently dropped. It's not like Mahrez is not going to play a single game between now and the Champions League final. That would just be ridiculous management. Mahrez hasn't played a game of football since Man City's semi-final Champions League game against PSG, a game he scored twice in, by the way. He's now missed the last 2 Premier League games. By the time Man City play their next game at the weekend, Mahrez will be very well rested, and in theory, judging by the patterns in which the best City players play, Mahrez should start versus Newcastle. If this happens, and I'd say there's probably like an 80% chance of this happening, this could be big points, because when Mahrez starts, he bangs. In 21 starts this season, Mahrez has got a 10-point or more haul 5 times. So almost 25% of the time, if he starts, he bangs. 2 of those hauls were, one was an 18-pointer versus Southampton, another one was a 21-pointer versus Burnley. He really does have these scary scores in him. So much so that he's averaging 6.19 points per start this season. For reference, that's about the same as Salah. So in many ways, Mahrez is a premium player when he starts. So what if he doesn't start? Well, although I'm fairly confident he'll start game week 36, I doubt he will start both 37 and 38. He'll probably start one of those 2 games. Well, when Mahrez is on the bench, he usually stays on the bench. So in 13 games that Mahrez has been benched this season, he's only been subbed on 4 times, which means minimal 1-pointers. So as long as you have a strong FPL bench that can sub on if Mahrez doesn't start a game, then you're in a great position. And I imagine if you're benching a couple of blanking Manchester United players, for example, this game week, then you'll probably have a bit of cover in your team on your bench anyway. So if you do have that strong bench and want a big hitting player, I think Mahrez is the guy to go for. Next buy is Dallas. I think this is a really obvious one, and many of you will have him already. If you've got Leicester defenders, Arsenal defenders, Chelsea defenders, maybe even Manchester United defenders at a push, and you want to switch out a blanking defender and bring in a non-blanking player, this is a really, really obvious one, particularly if you have a Leicester defender, for example, blanks in Gameweek 36, and there's some tricky fixtures in the final 2. If you think that you want to get rid of Castagna, Fofana, Evans, I don't know who you've got, that's a super, super easy switch right there. And I think there's 2 non-premium defenders, I guess, that I'd be thinking about bringing in this week. One of them is obviously Dallas. The other one is Sofao. Now, Dallas, I think, is the, like I keep saying, the more obvious one. 3 decent fixtures versus Burnley, Southampton, West Brom, so you can just set and forget him against those teams. Still playing in midfield, working hard, looking good. He's still taking plenty of shots. He's actually scored 3 goals now in his last 5 game weeks, which is just insane. He's been directly involved in half of Leeds' goals in the past 5 game weeks. And what makes things even better is that Leeds actually genuinely seem to be improving defensively too. Now, I'm not saying Leeds are an amazing defence suddenly, but they've creeped up to becoming maybe an average one, which is far better than before. They've conceded 1 goal per game on average over the last 5, which sounds pretty good. And during this run of 5 games, listen, the teams they played were City, Liverpool, United, and Spurs, and Brighton. But we won't talk about that. None of those teams, so City, Liverpool, United, Spurs, none of them were able to score more than 1 goal against Leeds. So yeah, we're looking at a seriously improving Leeds defence, who have maybe been prepared to dig deep a little more. Maybe they'll go back to their all-out attacking ways against the weaker teams. I'm not 100% sure, but they've shown that they can defend at least, which now. But before, they hadn't shown that at all. They were kind of the whipping boys in terms of defence. So Dallas, serious goal threat, serious clean sheet potential, nailed on. Seems like a great time to join the Dallas Buyers Club. Time for some sales. We're going to start off with Kelechi Iheanacho. Now, usually I wouldn't recommend selling an in-form attacker. I'm well and truly in the form over fixtures camp when it comes to strikers. Usually when a good striker's in form, they will pick up points and generally not be worth transferring out, particularly if there is light at the end of the tunnel and there is going to be some nice fixture at the end. Unfortunately for Leicester attackers, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. They have a blank, they have 2 bad fixtures, then that's it, done. And I think you have to look at it this way. Over a 3 game week period, who scores more points? Iheanacho with a blank and 2 bad fixtures, or Bamford with 3 good fixtures, or Iheanacho with 3 good fixtures, or Chris Wood with 3 good fixtures? You know, there are plenty of other options in the same price range who will outscore Iheanacho between now and the end of the season. And if that's the case, it's very easy to move him on for one of them. Just say, thank you, Nacho, for being an absolute legend for the past several game weeks. You've boosted all of our ranks significantly. Now it's time to move on to the next big thing. Now, let's kind of try and stay ahead of the template here, ahead of the curve, ahead of the crowd who might be a little bit more hesitant to sell Iheanacho than we are. Of course, guys, the same applies for Vardy, the same applies for Madison, and whatever other Leicester player you have. I think they're all sells. In fact, if you're on Vardy, Madison, or Castagna, they're even more obvious players to sell. But I thought I'd put Iheanacho as the main talking point in this video, as I know he's going to be the most popular one, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are kind of maybe on the fence of whether you should sell Iheanacho or not. I think it's a good move. I think you just say, thank you, Iheanacho, for your service. You absolute goat. But unfortunately, it's time to sell. My next sell is Marcus Rashford. United are kind of an interesting one this game week. Whereas Leicester, Chelsea and Arsenal players, we'd probably be happy to sell them. There's a real temptation to keep some Man U players. I could easily just fill up this section, you know, with a Chelsea player, with an Arsenal player. But those of you who have players from those teams, they're probably cheap players anyway that you're happy to bench. And if not, you're probably already thinking, I want to sell those players, right? That would be too easy. That would make this not a very interesting video. And to be fair, not a lot of people have a lot of Chelsea or Arsenal players anyway. United, on the other hand, no, they have some real premium there, real premium players. Rashford is one of them. Fernandes, another big one. There's obviously a few more, but the problem is that after the blank, United actually have a couple of fairly decent fixtures. Fulham, who are now relegated and playing for nothing, and Wolves, who have been pretty meh this season, again playing for nothing. I think, though, that once United have wrapped up their league position, there's going to be a little bit of rotation up front. It kind of happens every year. The last couple of games, United kind of love to bleed their youth players. We saw it with Greenwood last year getting regular football. There's been others in the past. I'm thinking of like Gomez, Rashford himself, Chong, James Wilson, if you remember him a while ago. They always get game time in the last 2 or 3 games. Now this year it's going to be Amad Traore. It's going to be Sholo Shoretire. And maybe some other youth players. I'm sure if you're a Manchester United fan, you'll know what youth players are looking good this season who are likely to play in these final games. If you are a United fan, let me know in the comments which youth players you think is going to get some game time. Rashford, with his kind of perpetual injury, seems like the perfect player to drop out of the team when there's only a few days between Gameweek 37 and Gameweek 38. There's nothing left to play for. United perhaps wrapped up their second place by that point, just waiting for the Europa League final kind of thing. Bruno, on the other hand, I can see him playing every game still, but I can also see why you'd want to move on Bruno too, just because he's a lot of money to sit on your bench in Gameweek 36. And as of recording this video, he's still yet to score from open play since Gameweek 24. The problem is, other than Salah, there's not really too many interesting premium midfielders. Salah, obviously, you'd quite comfortably go from Bruno Fernandes to Salah. I can see why you'd do that. Rashford, on the other hand, he's kind of an easy swap to Mahrez, Bale if you're feeling risky. A lot of you will probably want to go for Heung-min Son as well if you want to play it a bit safer. So there's plenty of transfer options to take out Rashford and put another player in. That's just a straight swap, really nice and easy. And so for that reason, Rashford's a sell. On the other hand, we've got Greenwood as a keep. Now Greenwood, I think, is a keep because he's cheap. Maybe his price range, around his price range, he's probably the best option still. I just think Greenwood's a keep because he's cheap. I'm a poet and I didn't even realise it. I just think he gets game time over the last 2 as well. He's a player who is way easier to bench for one game week. This game week, because of his price, I think Greenwood has just been fantastic recently. I'm sure Solskjaer will want to keep that momentum going. I'm sure he'll do the business again in Gameweek 37 and Gameweek 38. I'm going to keep this brief because I've already spoken about United a lot, but Greenwood is still putting up the best attacking numbers in that entire United team, even with slightly limited minutes. Not massively limited minutes, he has been playing a lot more, but he's playing less minutes than some of the other players and still putting up some really nice numbers. So 19 shots, 16 of them in the box, 3.06 XG, 2 big chances, 1.48 expected assists, and the important stats as well, 5 goals and 1 assist, all in the last 5. And what does that mean? FPL points. And what do points mean? The points mean that you get to gloat to your mini-league rivals that they sold Greenwood and you are an FPL god. But seriously, guys, if you have a couple of Man U players and you know you want to sell some of them, but you have to keep maybe one of them, I would make that one player to keep Mason Greenwood. My next keep is Ollie Watkins, the second most transferred out player of the game week so far. Why is Ollie Watkins being sold by so many players? Well, it's obvious. He got a red card last game week, so he can't play this game week. But that's actually not quite how it works this time. So yes, Watkins, by pure chance, did get probably the only red card of his entire career in Gameweek 35 versus United. The red card will indeed be a 1-game ban, but since Villa play twice in Gameweek 35, the game that Watkins misses is actually remaining in Gameweek 35 versus Everton, which means Watkins is going to be back to play against Crystal Palace in Gameweek 36. Now, I said at the start of the video, and I kind of can't really stress this enough for those of you who aren't aware, Watkins will serve his ban during Game Week 35 and will return for Game Week 36. He's playing, lads. Now, players who actually play during Game Week 36, they're going to be like gold dust. Especially if you're struggling to field a full 11 team, why would you sell Watkins when he actually plays? It's not even just that. It's that he's playing against Crystal Palace, one of the lesser defences of the league. So we've got a proven FPL asset who has scored well all season, taking on one of the weaker defences of the season, in a game week where most people are struggling to field a full 11 teams. Why on earth would you want to sell Watkins? Are people looking at the -1 point this game week and thinking, oh, Watkins, -1 points in a double game week, he must be a terrible player? It was one game. Watkins is not a dirty player. This is a very rare occasion, and I don't think it's going to happen again. Don't sell a player that had 5 goal contributions, for God's sake, in his last 5 games because of a freak red card. He's back versus Palace. He will play 90 minutes versus Palace. And knowing Watkins, he will probably get a goal or an assist in this game too. So guys, keep Watkins. Finishing off with some avoids, we're going to start off with Lingard. So the legends are not getting a good rap in this video, I know. Iheanacho, Lingard now. The big boys, might be time to come to an end for these guys. So there does come a time, and we've spoken about this before, where a streaky FPL asset, there comes a point where you've kind of missed the boat. You know, if you have him already, great. But if you're buying them, kind of missed out on the big points. The big points are kind of in the past, and you're just kind of joining the boat for the sake of it at that point, and it's not a very progressive move. If you've had Lingard for, you know, 5, 6, 7 game weeks, then fantastic. If you're only bringing him in now, it's kind of too late. As we were saying a few weeks ago, Lingard, big confidence player. Before, he knew he was in form, he knew he was playing well, he was taking plenty of shots from everywhere. Those stats have kind of dropped off a cliff. So in the last 3 games for Lingard, he's taken only 6 shots, only 3 in the box, only 2 on target. He's only made 1 key pass per game. His XG, his XA, they're pretty low too, like really, really low. So it's not even look likely that he's, you know, going to get a goal or get an assist, you know. Antonio coming back to the team is going to mean that Antonio is going to be the main man. So if you're looking for a West Ham attacker, I do think Antonio would be my pick. If you have Lingard, obviously keep him, but I'm wondering if a player like Rafinha, for example, might actually be the better cheap midfielder to go for. Rafinha's kind of been injured recently, but he's still one of the most consistently creative players in the entire league. He came back off the bench in his first game back in Gameweek 35, straight away got an assist versus Spurs. Due to injury, loads of people have sold him recently too, so his price is nice and low. He's a decent differential as well, so rather than bringing in Lingard at this point, I think Rafinha would be the player I prefer to go for. Let's finish off for Harry Kane. Again, this is going to be an interesting one, but we like to keep things interesting on the FPL Mate channel, you know that. So if you have Kane already, absolutely 100% keep him. You don't need to even think about selling Kane if you have him. But if you don't have Kane, I honestly don't think I'd be interested in bringing him in. Not because he's a bad player, he's clearly fantastic. Not because I don't think he'll score points, because he absolutely will score points. But I just think there are other forwards and other premium options in midfield as well that will outscore him. As such, is it worth putting your money in Kane? Now, here's my thought process, and it's kind of similar to the thought process I spoke about with Chelsea in regards to their attacking assets. When a team only scores 1 or 2 goals per game, that's fine when there's only 1 or 2 standout attackers. Now, this Spurs team has now Son, Kane, Bale starting as a front 3, Dele Alli potentially in behind. This is a team with plenty of players who want to shoot, who want to get goals. Back when it was just Kane and Son, that was fantastic. Not only were there only 2 of them getting the goal contributions, but Spurs were scoring a lot more goals too. The reverse is true now, so it's kind of difficult to look at a super expensive player like Kane in the same light as we saw him earlier on in the season. I think the emergence of Bale in particular has made Kane a worse asset as well, if you like. And Kane obviously perhaps feeling the tolls of a long season as well, and things not going well for Spurs. So there's a load of mini reasons like that, but I think the main thing is that with Bale, I don't know if Kane is going to be as desirable as he once was this season. But, you know, we've got a good option in Kane, but I think there are other options like DCL, Antonio, Wood, maybe Bamford. I can honestly see those guys getting around the same, if not more points than Kane between now and the end of the season. And you can get them for far less money. So if you want to go for one of those guys, you can spend your money in midfield. You can go for a Mahrez, you can go for Salah if you don't already own him, upgrade a defender to Trent maybe if you don't have him, and suddenly overall your team is looking a lot stronger. So I can't reiterate enough, I don't think Kane is a bad option, it's not that, but if I still had him, obviously I'd keep him, but nothing is telling me he's a must-have player. And unless you're someone who is just wanting to play safe now, you just want to hold rank to the end of the season and protect the rank that you've achieved so far, I'd be more interested in some of the other forwards I've mentioned today. So to summarise, sell all your Leicester players, all your Chelsea players, all your Arsenal players. If you're going to keep a United player, make it Greenwood. Watkins is a keep. Don't worry, he's eligible for Gameweek 36, and it's going to be a good one for him as well, hopefully. And Mahrez is, in my opinion, an insane differential pick who could give you that nice final boost that you're looking for. That is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, guys, so much. Please do like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here, of course. Check out OneFootball if you fancy checking out OneFootball. It's a pretty good app. I really would recommend it. I use it myself, so why not? Helps the channel as well. That's in the description. And aside from that, you can follow me on Twitter if you like. Still not hit 10,000 followers on Twitter. I'm wondering if I will ever hit 10,000 followers on Twitter, but that's a conversation for another time. And tomorrow, guys, I will see you, not for a team selection video, because we're going to do that on Thursday, but tomorrow we're going to talk about some differentials once again. So look forward to that, guys, and I'll see you then. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.